Welcome back. So TikTok has suspended its service in the United States hours ahead of a deadline. The video sharing app stopped working late on Saturday. The ban comes amid concerns about the platform's link to the Chinese government. Well, TikTok had until the 19th of January to sell the app to an approved U.S. buyer. Meanwhile, newly elected President-elect Donald Trump says he will likely give TikTok a 90-day reprieve once he assumes office. Well, Durban University of Technology Multimedia lecturer Siphumelele Zondi joins us now to give us more on this. Siphumelele, a good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. This is quite an interesting development, considering just the fast growth of TikTok globally over the years. Some saying that it's almost unrivaled at this stage, and perhaps I know that those are some of the numbers that you can give us. But are you surprised, number one, that we'd get to this particular date and see TikTok banned in the US?
Thank you very much for inviting me, Naledi, and hello to you and your viewers. Well, it's not quite surprising because you look at the way that when Donald Trump was in office, they dealt with Huawei, for example, where the fast rise of Huawei as a company in the United States of America seems to have been viewed with suspicion. So then Donald Trump, interestingly enough, even during his first term, had also mentioned a suspicion on TikTok as well, even though he's changed his tune right now. It's different from what he said in his first term. 170 million Americans plus are using TikTok, and that's why it's been difficult to sort of deal with the platform the way they thought they were going to deal with the platform, coming from when Congress made that ruling about that law that's planning to deal with apps or platforms that come from what they see as adversaries of the United States of America. So not surprising, but what could be surprising is how fast it actually happened, and the fact that when they said, oh, hold on, Donald Trump can deal with it when he comes into office, TikTok was like, no, we've dragged this long enough, we're going to do it ourselves and pull the plug ourselves.
Yeah, I wouldn't know a lot of the tech sort of jargon, and I've heard people talking about attempts to use VPN, and perhaps you can explain what that is to educate us a little bit. But there also have been reports of, well, some people have been able to access TikTok. I know, speaking to South Africans in the US, saying that if you're using your South African number, perhaps you still have access. So what are some of the limitations and, some of the, I suppose, the gaps that are still available?
Those are the VPNs that you're talking about, the virtual private network. So what happens there with the virtual private network is that your network or your internet connection is sort of linked to a different country and not the country in which you're staying. You'd find that, for example, Google is not allowed in China. So those that want to use Google would use a VPN in China. We've heard of VPNs, for example, in the case of Zimbabwe, when there have been internet blockades or social media blocks. People would find a VPN that's registered in a different country, and they would connect using that virtual private network in order to use what's available in that country. What's also interesting with TikTok is that it stopped functioning and you couldn't find it in America on Saturday night. That is Saturday before Sunday the 19th, which is when the ban was expected. But on some people, I remember journalist Dom Lemon posting that he suddenly could access it at about 12:30 noon in the United States of America. So some people could suddenly access it again. And maybe it's that soft pull out of the platform to see how Americans react to it before Donald Trump becomes president. So yes, if you are not in America, or if you're in America and you're using a VPN, you can possibly access it.
So this is interesting because I remember a few years ago when we had, I think there was an issue with internet connectivity and cords under the ocean here in South Africa a few years back. I'm taking you a little bit far back here. And when we had shutdowns, I remember a point where we even had a WhatsApp shutdown. Let me actually use that example. WhatsApp and Facebook shut down. Everybody moved, all the traffic moved to X, which was at that point still called Twitter. Can we see something similar happening here, where that traffic moves from TikTok to somewhere else?
Yeah, Naled, you probably are going to see that I'm sweating. Could be the heat where I am, could be what's happening in America. But some people have gone on and downloaded an app called Red Note, which is a Chinese app as well. Interestingly enough, because this law is saying it's dealing with people they've identified as adversaries or platforms identified to be coming from areas that are seen as adversaries of the United States. But it seems to have been targeted at just TikTok. The fact that people can go on and download an app that is Chinese, Red Note, for example. The fact that people can still shop on Shein, the fact that people can still shop on Temu in the United States means it's not all Chinese platforms that are being targeted. And so it's not clear if China is the adversary here, as the law says, why it's only TikTok that has been targeted, to the point that people have gone on to find other Chinese platforms that they've downloaded in order for them to bypass or to continue uploading their content, to continue running their businesses.
Yeah, there's also this issue around the kind of content that is shared on these platforms, depending on what country you're in. You know, is South Africa having its own sort of style of how it uses content, or TikTok? I'm keen to hear what sort of, you know, what Americans for the most part use TikTok for, and where it is business heavy, what that does to people's businesses. You know, I've seen people on social media talking about, well, I had 2.2 million followers. This is impacting on my business.
Oh, totally. That's the thing. A lot of Americans, unlike South Africans who are mostly content creators, and you might find a business in South Africa through your content creation, third-party content. In America, the people who are doing business directly on the platform, you find that they might be selling all kinds of different goods. You don't just find that in America, you find it in other territories as well, where people are making a secondary income from this particular platform. And that's why this has been so tricky to deal with. Like, for example, when some people are saying this could be one of the biggest layoffs in America or in American history, because of millions of people who are using this as a revenue generating platform. So it's not just for vibes or for fun in the United States of America. Some people are actually selling products using the platform, and they see it as some kind of layoff that's going to mess with their revenue stream.
Yeah, and the timing of it, some saying, oh, well, it's interesting that it happens as well, you know, at a time when we're looking forward to the inauguration of Donald Trump. Of course, he said that once he's in office, he's going to offer some sort of reprieve to TikTok users. I'm keen to hear if you think, you know, from a political point of view, that's going to hold him in good stead, because I'm looking at those numbers, 170 million users, a lot of them young, is a big constituency.
So Donald Trump himself has said that he wouldn't like to see TikTok go away. Again, different from what he said when he was president the first time around. He has said that he also sees it as a platform that rivals television, interestingly enough, because he said he would like those young Americans to access it as a news platform, to access the inauguration on the platform as well as they would through television and other methods, because he's now acknowledging that TikTok is a platform that a lot of young people to consume content, to find their news and other information. And again, if you then remove TikTok, not just business, you're removing them from a method they use to access information and news. He has acknowledged that, and he has acknowledged that his young constituency will be losing out. And he said that there could be a reprieve. Not sure how legal it would be, because Congress has signed for this to happen. It's been tested a couple of times in courts, the last time on Friday, and all courts it's been tested in have said the ban needs to go ahead as initially planned. So not sure how legal it's going to be if he then offers a reprieve of however long the reprieve is going to be. But he has said that when it comes into office, there's going to be a political solution and there might be a reprieve.
Yeah. Can TikTok be replaced? I mean, 170 million users is just what you're talking about in the US. Can you build, you know, can the US, Silicon Valley, for instance, build something as big as that, and certainly also be able to get the traffic onto it. I mean, we've seen other sort of social media platforms try to build, things like Threads, linked to Instagram, and there's a question around, well, are the numbers really picking up there? Is the traffic really going? Do social media users really still jump onto the next thing when there is already something that's quite big and established?
Clearly not, Naledi, because for the last couple of years, TikTok has been hasn't come up with anything that can rival TikTok. They've tried to come up with multiple platforms. Twitter sort of changed and included video as well, and became X. There's been conversation of whether maybe the American part of TikTok can be sold to people like Elon Musk and it can be merged with his X. And there's Instagram as well, which included other video platforms from the old picture formats that it used to have, but nothing has managed to rival TikTok. And that's how they got here, which means Americans haven't been able to build a platform that has the kind of algorithm that TikTok has, and that has found the popularity that TikTok has. And that does very many things in the way TikTok is doing the very many things that it actually does. It can't be built that quickly. It certainly hasn't been built in the last 5 years of TikTok's massive popularity in America and other territories.
Okay, let's stop with the US, because obviously they've got their problems with TikTok, and we'll see in the weeks and days that come around whether or not that ban will be lifted by the president that will be inaugurated tomorrow, as he has promised. But I want to bring it back home, Siphumelele, because I'm keen to hear, I suppose, the picture we paint around TikTok and what it's become here in South Africa, how users are leveraging on it, the numbers that are that it's been able to attract, and really some of the key features of TikTok South Africa as we watch the US, and many users really miss what some have said is a very addictive platform.
So in South Africa, it works slightly different. People can't make that additional revenue directly in the way that they do in America. And I suppose in America, it's because of those 170 million plus people. You find that similar platforms that are also owned by ByteDance, for example, in China, they would work in a pretty similar way, in other big territories. In South Africa, it's still people becoming content creators that then brands can find in order to work with them. So it works slightly different currently in South Africa. That could change in future with the growth of the platform here in South Africa, as well as we know that it's grown extensively here in South Africa as well. And as we do know that in the way that it's worked in South Africa, it's sometimes spoken about as synonymous with the rise of Amapiano all over the world, and the rise of other subcultures that have come out of South Africa. But it's still not the direct to market method that the sellers are using it for in the United States of America.
Okay, I'm seeing an article here by CNN Business, Siphumelele, that reads around 12 hours after shutting itself down in the United States, TikTok is back for many users, almost like it never left, attributing its return to a move by President Donald Trump to save the app. I'm getting that update now. So it's seemingly, are you surprised that you'd see that, I suppose, quick turnaround time?
Perhaps not, because Donald Trump has said that there could be a political solution. Now, what he also needs to figure out is what that political solution is going to be. Can it go against a decision that was decided by Congress almost 9 months ago? Can it go against what the courts have ruled on a couple of times? We'll wait and see. Maybe they're going to go back and they're going to test it again in a few more courts. Maybe they're going to sit at Congress again and have another discussion about this, because they didn't realize the backlash that was going to come from this.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Siphumelele Zondi, the multimedia and journalism lecturer at DUT, speaking to us this evening. We'll take a short break. We're back in a moment. Stay with us.